Just when you think you're done, you're not.
We are Shelby and Woody. We met in 2015 and immediately discovered our shared passion for travel and adventure. We've cruised the Bahamas, rode a train through Alaska, and even got engaged in Hawaii. After stumbling upon a van life video on YouTube, we loved the idea but considered it a pipe dream.
4x4 Sprinter van, and unfortunately it's sold.
Well, as you can see, with a lot of hard work and perseverance, that pipe dream is becoming a reality.
What came today?
Please consider subscribing so you can follow along on our journey while we build out a van, travel the world, and Encompass Adventure.
Hey guys, today we're gonna be working on the back doors of our van, and we're gonna be turning this into this. I said, into this.
Hey babe.
What are you doing? You're supposed to be inside of the van.
Oh shoot. Into this.
So the first step is to glue some braces, I guess, onto the metal of the van. And what this is gonna do is give us a surface to put a ring around the window. And we're gonna put one there and one on each side. Okay, we've got this rigged up, 2 big long posts. This is actually part of our bed frame, and it's working out really well to hold these posts, and it's putting pressure on the pieces that are being glued to the van door. All right, so these are now glued on. It's not completely cured, but it's been sitting there for about 2 hours, and it is steady enough.
It's not going anywhere.
And the next step is to put this ring that Woody made with the router tool on the window around the porthole, like so. And what it's going to do is become like a little backboard for the window so you don't see the van. Since we're doing a square frame around a circle window, we thought it would be the easiest route. We actually did it for our other windows as well, right there.
And because this window, when we put this outer aluminum frame on, didn't seat perfectly, so it's actually 12 inches tall by 12 1/4 wide. So not a perfect circle. The tool that I used with my router cuts a perfect circle, so I did that at 12 inches. And then I kind of just put the frame up here, and I noticed it was tight down here, so I just like marked with a pencil where I needed to sand out, and just kept doing this back and forth for like 9 years, a little while, and then eventually it fit, and it's nice.
This piece is why we had to glue these pieces on, because this needed something to sit against on the van and something to glue to because of the curvature of the door. If we had just put this piece on, then it would not have been as flush as without these pieces. And this is a really strong construction adhesive. It's Gorilla Glue brand, and we've used it for pretty much everything that's needed glue in our van, and it's worked amazingly.
Okay.
Now we just need to let this glue set for a little bit before we can move on to the next steps. Well, it looks like Woody turned our little, what would you even call this? This was the little rig we created to put pressure on the wood. I told him it looks like a signpost. So what did you do?
I made a signpost.
You wrote Woody and Shelby on it. Oh no, mine's upside down.
Sorry.
Just like everything in life. Okay, this is dry enough now to where we can move on. And the next step is just when you think you're done, you're not, with insulation. So we're just gonna put insulation in all these grooves here, and then up at the top, and we can't obviously put this up in here until there's something to hold it. So once we put the rest of the wood on, then we'll be able to tuck some in. But we're going to put as much insulation on as we can right now.
What you holding?
Just this 5mm backing that you made, and I painted the edges because we made the mistake of not doing that on the other side in case you see them. This just helps the shiplap have a more level appearance. It sits on here better since nothing in a van is straight. So we put this on first, and then the shiplap on top of it.
And we'll do another piece, which is right here at the top part of the door, which we've also got to cut a window hole out for and all that jazz. But
Yep, my arm is falling asleep. So
oh, do you want me to go get the drill?
if you could maybe screw this in, that'd be real cool.
So we are using these Everbuilt self-tapping drywall screws. We're not putting drywall up, but this works great. I've got some 1 1/8, and then for later use we also have some 1 1/4 and 1 5/8. So these are at Home Depot and have worked really well. Got my trusty Batman wrist guard.
It's really a magnetic wristband that holds screws. All right, now we're screwing the top half in of the backing, and we just put the frame in. We're holding the frame here to kind of give us a guide as to where this needs to be.
One little quick tip, we took these 2x2s and we're putting them on the inside behind this backer board, and then I'm going to screw it in right there. This will give us something a little more solid to screw in the siding right here.
And one more thing before we put the support beams up, we actually need to shove insulation down in here. Remember earlier we couldn't put any in that spot yet because there was nothing to hold it up. But now we need to fill this full of insulation all around the window. And then we can put those support beams in and then the frame.
All right, so now I need to trim this frame a little bit because vans aren't square and it sticks out more at different points of the van. So what I did, you can see that I wrote my measurements here. It sticks out 7/8 here and it sticks out 5/8 here. So the difference in between those is 2/8, right? 1/4 inch. And then it sticks out again 5/8 down here, 1 1/8 up there, which is a 1/2 inch difference. And there's a 1/2 inch difference from top to bottom on this side as well. And there's a 1/4 inch from left to right there as well. So then I took my frame pieces that I had already cut to length, and I started with the bottom. Like that song? No? Okay. I started with the bottom piece. Nice. That's what I get for making jokes. And I cut that one. You can see it now fits really well. And then I lined up my side pieces on the bottom so that they are the same width there. And then I took a 1/2 inch off from the top down to the bottom, and it fits great. Lines up perfect. Did the same thing to the other side. And then I put my top piece on, and you can see my marks here and down there. So I will draw a straight line, well, not a straight line, I will draw a line from point A to B, and then I will use the miter saw to cut it and then put it all together.
So it's a couple days later. We couldn't finish yesterday because there was a crazy windstorm. It was like 75 to 80 mile per hour
Oh, we
winds.
had some that broke 100 gusts.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So we couldn't be out here, but we're picking it up where we left off.
All right, time to take off the braces.
We're moving right along. The next step is to put the pine shiplap up. But first, Woody is measuring for each piece, and we'll show you how we do the process to figure out the shape of each piece that's going up onto the door. So now it's the never-ending process of measuring, cutting, measuring again, cutting again, sanding, using the router to getting the right shape, and then I'm going to start staining as Woody is cutting them, because we need the bottom piece stained and finished and then screwed into the van so we can build on top of that and put the rest of the pieces on.
Pretty good, huh?
It's a new day once again, well, evening rather, because we work on this after our day jobs. And we got the first 3 pieces up. Ooh, we have them stained and screwed in, and now we're working on the rest of the pieces. And it's very important that you do at least this first piece and have it stained and then screwed in so you can build on top of it and get the other pieces. And once we're done cutting these other pieces for the rest of the door, we'll show you our process for staining, for treating, staining, and then putting the top coat on the wood. What we're using to make these spaces in between each board are actually paint sticks from Home Depot. They're free in the paint section, and we just cut them and it creates the perfect gap in between these. Otherwise it would just sit flush and you wouldn't have that shiplap look. So we basically just measure and cut and stack and make sure that everything fits perfectly, and then we move on to the next piece. And then once we have them for the entire door, we're going to stain them. And like you just saw, you want to shut the door periodically while you have these lined up so you can make sure that it doesn't hit the weather strip or any other parts of the van that it shouldn't be touching. Well, the things you have to do for a van build. We had to clamp this piece of wood so we could line these up because they're not glued or stained or screwed in at all. And then we got all those pieces, and Woody has the great idea, or had the great idea, of numbering. So he's putting a number on this back piece of wood, and it corresponds with each of these pieces of wood. So each of these pieces of wood has a number on the back. So now we know that number 10 goes here, 11, 12, so on and so forth.
And a shout out to Shelby, who was standing holding a bunch of pieces of wood together for like 20 minutes straight. So.
My arms were jello. Okay, it's now time for the long, tedious process of treating, staining, and top coating the wood. So what you're going to need, at least what we use, is a pre-stain. This is a wood conditioner, and you want to make sure that if you're using an oil-based stain, you want a conditioner that's for oil-based, and if it's water-based, then water-based. And then the stain we're using is a premium wood stain. It's in a weathered gray color, but it turns out like a blue gray. We got this at Home Depot. And then we're using polyacrylic protective finish. It's a water-based top coat. We do 3 of these, and this process takes quite a while. We probably won't be able to hang these up until tomorrow. But then you also want some paint cloths or some rags, a paintbrush, and then we use a foam brush to put the conditioner on, and then gloves are optional. So we have all of the wood laid out, as you can see. And the first step is I have a wet rag, and we kind of blew all this off with the vacuum, but I'm just making sure to wipe all of these and get all of the extra dust off. You want to be pretty liberal with this conditioner. It doesn't need to be too perfect. You just let it, you put it on and then you let it sit for about 5 minutes, and anything that hasn't soaked into the wood, you just wipe off. Just trying to get all of this coated now. And it really brings out the wood grain too. It looks really, really pretty.
Just a little bit right there.
You got an accent now? Did I miss a little bit right there?
You still missed a little bit right there.
Am I still missing it? Right there?
Yep.
Did I
There you go. Drogo, are you bored with helping? And our other little helper, Olive, keeps pushing her tennis ball underneath the gate so that I throw it to her. And there she is again.
Okay, it's finally time to stain. We have all of the wood conditioned. I have my rags, and then we have a process where we do a 1-minute timer. So Woody puts all the stain on, and then we set the timer, and then once it's sat on there for a minute, we wipe it off. And Woody has his brush and his stain. And we're gonna tag team this.
And my Drogo.
And his Drogo. Let's go. Now it's time to start putting the top coat on. Make sure that you've wiped all of the dust off of it before you put the top coat on, because it will stick. Some people use polyurethane. We'll probably use that on the countertops, but because we already had this on hand, we figured we might as well use it, and it's what we use on the walls inside of our van too. And the reason that I'm lifting it up like this is because you can see that it's like dripping off, and you don't want that to happen. I learned that the hard way when I let it drip like that and left it on the table, and it kind of got glued to the table. That's why we also have them on other pieces of wood so it doesn't stick to anything. Last night I did a second coat of the polyacrylic Minwax top coat on it, and it says to do a minimum of 3. So I'm on the 3rd one, and in between coats you want to take a 400 grit sandpaper and just very, very lightly sand it, and then wipe it all off, and then do another coat. So that's what I'm going to do now.
Now that we've got all of these stained and we've got the top coat on them, next we need to start hanging them. So we've got this little ruler that we've made, and basically what we do is, to know how high up we want the screw, is we line up flush there, and we've drawn a line on this where we want to put the screw in. And then I'll do it on this side here. And we just make a mark with the screw, and now I know exactly where I want it to go, and then we'll go and hang it up on the van door. So I discovered you've got to go kind of fast to get these self-tapping screws to hit through the metal. But once you do, stop and then go in slow, because if you look here, this is what we call a boo-boo.
An oopsie.
Which is different from the prince in Aladdin, which is a babwa.
Oh boy, they just never stop. Anyway, to be fair, we did not technically let the last top coat cure enough. We let it cure for, I'd say, about 2 hours. And it says to let it cure fully for 24 hours, but we didn't have that kind of time. We didn't want to wait.
All right, last piece. And then we move on to the window trim.
Okay, we did it. All the pieces of wood are up, and the very last part of this process is doing this trim so you don't see any gaps. And so it turns out like that one.
It's a poplar board. It's 1.5 by 1/2 inch. So really nice, sturdy. It's not too hard to where it cracks easily like oak might be. So
now Woody's having to create a bunch of little shims to go around the trim, and then I'm going to put some wood filler around it, sand it, and then paint it.
Scalpel? I mean wood piece.
This?
Yeah.
That's just being held there so we know where to nail it in. Whew.
Okay.
All right. 2 more sides. Yay! The trim's up. Now we just need to, and by we, I mean me.
I could do it.
It's my job to put the wood filler in all these cracks, sand it, and do another coat of paint over the entire thing.
Don't let her fool you. The reason it's her job is because she doesn't trust that I'll do it right or with enough finesse, and she's not wrong.
I was just gonna ask, do you trust that you'll do it right?
No. I trust that it'll look like I did it if I did it.
Babe,
Yes, ma'am.
things look good when you do them. Just not anything that has to do with glue or paint.
Or tape.
Or tape.
Or cables.
Okay, I'm still working on this. I got the first coat of wood filler on, and I've sanded it down. Pretty dusty process, but let me show you the wood filler that I'm using. It is, again, by Minwax. High performance wood filler. This stuff's actually really awesome. On the other door and other parts of the van, I've used a different, it's like called plastic wood, a different wood filler. Definitely don't like this one as much. It gets really crumbly really fast. And it's just not as smooth to work with. I guess I can take this off while I'm talking to you guys. But this one smells like fish bait. I don't know if you guys have ever been fishing, but that's what this looks like. It just isn't my favorite. Like, it worked well for what we needed, but we found this one, which is much better. This one smells like acrylic nails. Really potent smell, which is why I was wearing a mask, plus the dust. But this one is a little easier to work with, and you kind of mix. It has a little tube in here, and you mix it with the wood filler. It dries very quickly though. It says right on the can to just mix what you can use in 10 minutes. So I got most of this done. I think I need to do another layer on some of it. Like in here, it was pretty deep. But I just went around and sanded it all smooth. I'm gonna do another layer, and then once that dries and it's sanded, I'm gonna paint it. All right guys, it's late, and I really don't wanna wait for this second coat of wood filler to dry. I was really hoping we would get this done today because it has taken way longer than expected, but we're really, really proud of ourselves. So tomorrow, I'm just gonna sand this. I might have to do a little bit more on the bottom just because it was such a deep groove that I had to fill. But that really shouldn't take too long. I just need to sand it, make it all flat and even, and then paint it. And then we can check this off the list. After 3 coats of the wood filler, I'm ready to paint. Woohoo! And then we're done with this door. Oh, and I got my little bitty paintbrush for the back because I don't want to get it on anything. So this might take a while. Guess what, guys? We're finally done with the doors. It took way longer than anticipated and a lot more time than I'd like to admit, but it turned out so good.
That's what's behind door number 1.
And behind door number 1, you have the same thing as door number 2. Well, we hope you guys like this time-consuming project because we're super proud of how it turned out. And if you are, give it a thumbs up.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye!
What?
Wasp. Ooh, good thing I stayed calm. There was a wasp.
You know what does look good?
What?
An empty beer glass after I drink it.